So welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of my Impulse restoration. This is going to be a special part. This is the Xpulse brand new suspension. We're going to install the Xpulse suspension on the Impulse. Let's see how that goes. Now initially I made a massive mistake. When I got the Charisma engine, I threw away my entire wiring, ignition coil and CDI of the Hero Impulse. So now I have bought a brand new wiring, ignition coil, CDI. So the wiring is going to be redone completely. We're going to remove the Charisma wiring and place brand new Impulse wiring. I've also purchased these LED lights. Again, it doesn't belong to a specific brand, but the advantage of these lights are it's got a high beam, low beam, as well as a color option of a yellow and white. These were pretty economical, 1,700 rupees. Apart from this, there is a leakage issue which we got to sort, and the Charisma carburetor needs to be tuned. So hopefully we should cover all of this in part 2.
We shall initially begin this video by removing the Charisma carburetor, cleaning it and tuning it so that my bike starts.
Okay, now ideas are coming in my head. This is basically of a FZ, and it kind of covers the rear wheel really good. Impulse riders in the monsoon always has an issue. This may resolve it. Let me see if I would put this as an accessory.
Now it's time to change the wiring from a Charisma wiring to a stock Hero Impulse wiring. Now we'll be finally replacing the stock Hero Impulse suspension with the stock Xpulse suspension, which is much beefier and can take much more load. The only difference between the Hero Impulse and the Xpulse suspension is the rear part of the Hero Impulse suspension is a bit wider and the Xpulse suspension is a bit narrower. So what you need to do to compensate for that will be explained in this video itself. Now I got to explain that it is not advisable to put just the stock Xpulse suspension. Why? Because it lifts your rear end to a very large extent and it will be as if you're sitting on a slope. So it's not exactly comfortable. But I have made certain changes in the bike to compensate for the extended rear height. What are those changes? That I'll be explaining in part 3. In this video, we'll be just showing you how we have replaced the Impulse suspension with the Xpulse suspension and my initial impressions for the same.
थोड़ा गाड़ी पकड़ी थी कहने को गाड़ी में कोई नहीं कुछ मत कर टेढ़ा लगा स्पीकर पकड़ना हाँ हाँ बस से लगा सही से
ठीक है.
Now let's test how the suspension feels on the bike chassis, how bouncy it feels, and does the bike feel comfortable.
Sizable increase. So I've installed a Xpulse suspension in an Impulse. As you can see, it's a direct fit. This is the Impulse suspension. This is the Xpulse. The Xpulse is much wider, thicker. It just looks beefier, in short. There is a considerable increase in height. The suspension setting is 5 right now. It can actually go much higher. But just wanted to know, it's a direct fit in the Impulse for anyone who's inquisitive. The Impulse is getting ready. Just a small comparison between the Ducati Scrambler and my Impulse. I don't know about you, but my Impulse looks much better. And there's a little assistance from my cycle in terms of lighting. You can literally see how massive the suspension travel is over here. This is an Xpulse suspension, and this is a stock Ducati suspension. Obviously, I'm a little biased towards my bike. Ducati also looks amazing, but come on, you get the Impulse at the fraction of the rate. It is impressive. So let me know your views on the same. So the Xpulse is a direct fit Xpulse suspension, and there's a little gap on the left hand side because the Xpulse suspension, this part is slightly narrower than the Impulse suspension. So I've just placed a visor over here which keeps the suspension in place. So it performs really good.
Now we shall check how good these unbranded LED lights are. And for me, I found them pretty impressive. The yellow lights are the low beam and the white lights are the high beam. The good thing about the yellow lights are it does not come in the opposite person's eyes. I've seen quite a few people with expensive LEDs that are extremely powerful and kind of blinds the opposite traffic. This LED does not. The white light, yes, if you switch that on, you may blind the opposite traffic, so you use that only in secluded areas. But I regularly use only the yellow light and I feel it is pretty impressive. Coming up in part 3, yes, these are not stock Impulse rims. What size of rims they are and how do they help with reference to the Xpulse suspension shall be explained.
This is the final output of the rims. Let's see how it looks on the bike.